Yeah, hey, this shit easy, nigga. Hey, I'm talking about, nigga, I'm still out here trying to get it.
Contender regime boxing, checking back in with y'all, man. What's good? So I was able to catch the Shakur Stevenson and Artem Artatuyan card this past weekend in Newark, New Jersey on ESPN. Um, all in all, just to give a quick overview of what I thought about the card as a whole, I thought the card was good, man. Going into the fights, I really felt like the Keyshawn Davis fight was gonna be better than what a lot of people thought. I also thought that the Robson Conceição and Oshaki Foster fight was gonna be good, and Oshaki put on a clinic. He wasn't as offensive as people probably would have wanted to see him, but he still put on a dominant masterclass of hit and not get hit, and he totally got robbed, which was an absolute disgrace to the sport. Hopefully there's something that they can do to have that appeal, but that was terrible from the judges. But I knew that fight was going to be something. I didn't think it was going to be that. And then the Shakur Stevenson and Artem fight, I knew that was going to be interesting, at least the first part of the fight, because Artem is a formidable guy, a bronze medalist. He got skills, he got experience. But ultimately, I expected Shakur to go out there and do his thing. And then shout out to the young phenom, Abdullah Mason, who was nothing short of incredible. The skill that he continues to display time after time after time is just amazing. And I'm so excited to see what he got going forward. What type of performances that he's going to be able to put on, and the type of fighters that they can put him in the ring with on his come up. But just talking about Shakur Stevenson, just keying in on his performance and what I thought. So, first and foremost, going into the fight, I felt like Shakur needed to do more than just win. And what do I mean by that? I'm not saying that he needs to go out there and be overly reckless to force a knockout and, have to put on this one punch knockout type of performance, or like brutally beat Artem to the point where he's bloody and he quits. Like, it didn't necessarily have to be that, but I wanted to see Shakur Stevenson at his best. And what does that normally look like? He's 21-0 with 10 knockouts. So obviously he's been putting on dominant performances without getting stoppages. I wanted to see Shakur put his punches together, have that perfect balance of offense and defense. One of the things that I highly touted Shakur Stevenson for coming out of the amateurs and his first few fights in the pros was how balanced he was, how he was able to transition from offense to defense and from defense to offense, how he's been able to be a defensive first fighter, but then also have enough punch output and volume on offense to where his fights are still exciting and not super boring. This fight, I don't feel like I got that. It wasn't a bad performance at all. It was a clean victory for Shakur Stevenson. His defense was good, defense first. I thought that he waited too much with Artem. Artem did, try to set traps for Shakur. And I see what Shakur saw. I see that Artem was setting traps to get Shakur to open up, and then Artem would load up on big ass overhand rights, and them overhand rights was sneaky by Artem too. And Artem was also aiming for the body as well. Shakur saw that shit, and he knew that, yeah, I can be a little offensive, but I don't want to risk it enough to where I open up, and at the wrong time, this dude land one of them big ass right hands, and then that changed the whole fight. You feel me? So I get where he coming from, but when you're calling yourself the best in the sport, when people view you as an elite talent, when they view you to be on the level of a Gervonta Tank Davis, who I feel is, one of the most complete fighters in the sport, when you're being viewed on that level, you have to do more than just enough to win. You have to do more than, if you want to keep up those comparisons, if you want to be on par with those guys that you're saying that you're better than, if you claim that you're so much more elite than everybody else, then you can't just merely do enough to win. You can't just say, okay, I'm gonna be super defensive first, and then I'm gonna make sure I don't get hit with nothing crazy, but then I'm also gonna allow that to take away from my offense. I'm also like, you don't want to sacrifice your offense just so you don't get touched with nothing. At the end of the day, it's still a fight. You know what I'm saying? So you got to be offensive. And Shakur was, complaining about he was saying, well, I can't show you the best of myself because y'all didn't put me in there with a guy who's going to be willing to throw punches and compete. Half of that is true, but on the other half of that, you, like Shakur said, you got to be able to cut the ring off. And it's your job to be able to get a guy to open up. You know what that remind me of? That remind me of, guys who used to complain about Floyd, pressure fighters who used to complain about Floyd moving around and boxing and showing good defense just because them motherfuckers couldn't. They like, man, just stand right there and let me punch on you. No, it's your job to force him to open up. It's your job to put him in a position and force him to open up, just like Frank Martin and Tank Davis. Frank Martin was doing a beautiful job of boxing and moving, you know what I'm saying, and using his legs, and he was also letting shit off on offense and throwing, whenever he had an opportunity, he was throwing shots with Tank. But that's a credit to Tank, what he did in that 7th round to get, to start wearing Frank Martin down. Well, he did it over the course of the fight, but you started to really see it in that 7th round where, Frank Martin really couldn't keep up that movement no more because of the pressure from Tank. Because of Tank, whenever he did get him stationary, he opened up and was accurate with his shots and made a motherfucker get wore down, and to the point to where shit, at some point you're gonna have to stand right there, whether it be on the ropes or in the middle of the ring, you're gonna have to fight me, and then that's when you can get your shit off. Shakur is showing you that he has a lack of ability to do that. You know what I'm saying? And that's on Shakur. But again, all in all, it was a successful performance. It was a winning performance, but it wasn't what I felt like he needed to make that statement. But again, successful title defense. I still want to see Shakur versus Tank Davis. And I don't want to hear none of that, well, Shakur is boring, so the fight shouldn't happen. No, because going back to what I just said, if Tank was to take a fight like that, it would be Tank's responsibility to make the fight. You know what I'm saying? It'll be Tank's responsibility to force Shakur to do something that he's uncomfortable with. And for Shakur, if he gets down on the cards in that fight, which he most likely will, if he decides to be super defensive and don't want to throw no punches, he gonna get down on the cards in that fight, and it's gonna be his responsibility to show something different for him to be able to get the judges on his side and get some type of decision over Tank if he can make it 12 rounds. You feel me? So I don't want to hear none of that on either side. Again, good victory for Shakur, but you got to be better, bro. You got to work on cutting the ring off, and you got to get that mental block out your mind when it comes to being afraid. I don't even want to use the term afraid because, it's a negative connotation with that. But, I don't know, just reluctant. You got to get that shit out your mind, bro, and know that either you going to have to get better with slipping and getting your head off the line when you are throwing so you're not so afraid about the return fire, or you just going to have to let your nuts hang and understand that you're going to have to take a couple to get your shit off sometimes. So y'all let me know what y'all think down in the comments. How did y'all feel about Shakur Stevenson's performance? Do you think he made the statement that he needed to make? Were you okay with just him doing enough to win? And, what do you see him going forward? Should he go immediately after a Tank Davis fight next? Or should he fight somebody else and work on his, the issues that he got, man? Y'all let me know what y'all think down in the comments, man. Contender Regime Boxing. I'll holler at y'all boys, man.